No, I have to open the meeting first.
Sorry.
Good evening and welcome to the Select Board meeting for Monday, June 16th, 2025. And I'll accept a motion.
I'll second that.
No, you make a motion to go in executive session.
Okay, I make a motion that we go into executive session. A, pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining for all town unions and non-union personnel and/or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, and the chair has determined that open session would have a detrimental effect on the town's bargaining position. B, pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Finance Director.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to go into executive session. We will not be coming out of executive session to resume the public session until after 6 p.m. So take a vote. Pete?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. We'll be back later. All right, I'm going to call the meeting back to order again. Let's see here. Before we go any further, we're in executive session, and the only thing that I can divulge as part of the executive session is we've broken off negotiations with Brittany Capone as our finance director. She's accepted another job. We wish her the best, and we will have to down the road recruit again. And there was no other action on anything else. If you could stand and say the pledge with me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Staff comments and announcements. Anyone on staff? Chief?
Good evening, all. Kevin Considine, Police Chief. I just wanted to bring the board up to date on our 4th of July planning. We had a meeting today with our command staff, sergeants, and officers in charge. We have a robust plan. This will be our 3rd summer in a row for the July 4th holiday period. Obviously covering the beaches in Harwichport. I obviously don't want to divulge that plan at length for obvious reasons, but rest assured, I'm sure many of you seen on social media other towns pushing out their plans, namely Chatham and Dennis. So we're going to be right there with them because they each have had issues over the years, and proud to say we've been ahead of the curve on that, particularly in Harwichport. So I just wanted to bring the board up to date on that. Obviously, if you have any questions, let me know, but we do have a robust plan for July 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any other staff comments?
Don, sorry, Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I just want to remind the public that I will be holding my office hours with Select Board Member Jeff Handler will be held on Tuesday, tomorrow, June 17th, 2025, at the Community Center from 4:30 to 5:45 p.m. And I'd invite Mr. Keller or Anita or Mark, or if you'd like to attend, that would be great as well. Thank you.
Any other staff comments? All right. Turning to the weekly briefing, I actually asked this so that the public would get an idea of the timelines now that we've approved 3A. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, 2 different weekly briefings. As you've mentioned, one regarding the upcoming Great Sand Lake Sewer Construction Project, also known as Phase 3A, as well as where we are in Phase 3. So first, the usual weekly briefing for the Phase 3 sewer extension update, the look ahead. This covers the period of June 16th through June 27th. And right now, under the 1 East contract, construction is on Bay Road. Again, they are constructing the sewer collection system with buried pipes and structures, Bay Road on public property. And there are still police and traffic control in place. And there does not appear to be a 2 West update, so more on that next week. That would be the weekly update for Phase 3 for the update presently for Great Sand Lake Sewer construction. So the next 3 items are related to the town pursuing State Revolving Fund, or SRF, financial assistance. The 3 critical dates were June 30th, 2025, October 3rd, 2025, and June 30th, 2026. So the first date was met, town met its obligations for June 30th of 2025 by providing a certified vote on the local appropriation by town meeting. So this, of course, goes back to the town meeting action on May 6th, I believe, as well as the debt exclusion that was approved on May 20th. That information was sent, and the state received it and accepted it on Monday, June 9th, so we'll check that one off. The next 2 items that are out there, the town must submit a complete construction application, which would include plans and specifications that are bid-ready, along with the plans and specifications checklist to the state on or before Friday, October 3rd, 2025. And then the last deliverable related to the SRF process is that the town must have fully executed construction contracts in place by June 30th, 2026. And then there's a note that the town has 6 months to initiate construction project from the issuance of the project approval certificate, which ties to those dates. So 1 down, 2 to go, 1 in the fall, and 1 a year from now.
Thank you. And for those in the public that were wondering about it, we do have milestones we have to achieve. We're on target. And the intended use plan is actually being followed, and the state's fine with us, so the message is everything's going as we planned. Thank you.
That concludes my briefings.
All right, public comments. Anyone? Mr. Nixon.
Good evening, folks. Dave Nixon, CPC Chair. I'm here by direction of my board to ask you folks for a joint meeting of the Board of Select Persons and the CPC to discuss the grant agreements. So July 1st is coming up pretty quick. That's when the monies start to get released. And I've got a couple of inquiries on my email already. So I'd like to set that up at your convenience. Thank you.
We have an agenda meeting tomorrow. We'll talk about it. Julie, it's odd seeing you out there.
How are you? It's nice to be on this side of the podium. I just had a question on how you wanted to handle, I had questions on new business item E and old business A. Do you want me to wait to have those come up on the agenda?
If you wouldn't mind, because
No, that's fine.
this part of the agenda isn't designed to have any interaction.
Right, perfect, thanks.
Ann Frechette, East Harwich. I wasn't planning to speak, but I just wanted to let the public know we had our Harwich Ponds Coalition meeting on Saturday, and we had Amy Usowski from the Conservation Administrator. We had Carrie Schoner from the Health Department, Michael Luck from Harwich Conservation Trust, and Representative Sonia, whose last name is so hard to pronounce, I'm going to try, from APCC, the Association to Preserve Cape Cod, and I think it was a really productive meeting. We had lots of great questions from the audience, and it looked like there was a lot of coordination among the panelists, and I would like to thank Mr. Kelleher for attending the meeting. It was really pleasant to see representation from the Select Board at the meeting, so thank you very much.
Patrick, I see you warming up in the bullpen here.
Good evening, Select Board. Patrick Otten, East Harwich. I'm simply going to offer a slightly different perspective on the housing crisis that everyone's paying attention to and trying to address. You know, where in the world isn't there a housing crisis? Not only Harwich, but as well, what's the best solution? You know, in my lifetime, we've seen a 60% decline in nature. That means birds, fish, mammals, plants are being lost. We've seen human population go from 2 billion to 8 billion. So to try to solve the housing problem by build, is that the correct approach? I'm wondering if not, we can differently approach the problem by changing our zoning regulations to go from denser privately owned homes rather than mega build-outs of rental units. That's simply my perspective and my question. I'd love to have that question answered. How can we change zoning so that we can achieve better housing equity for everyone? Thank you.
Any other comments? Matt's just here as a spectator.
Thank you for, just a spectator.
All right. And we'll move on if there aren't any more public comments. To the consent agenda. Can you split the two of them out?
Sure, I can. Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the select board meeting minutes from June 9th, 2025.
Second.
And I'd like to propose that there be an amendment to the minutes, just for the public's edification. There was a discussion during the presentation that there are interactive features now contained in the local comprehensive plan, but the comment was also made that you would need special programming from Adobe to be able to see those features if the public or me or anyone here were to log on. I think that should be part of the narrative in the minutes.
I think that's what you said, Mark, right? In your motion?
Yes, it is.
And it was part of my second, Mr. House.
That's what I heard. All right. Is there any other discussion on the minutes? If none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair, I move that we approve the resignation of Tim Bailey from the Board of Appeals effective immediately.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the resignation from Tim Bailey from the Board of Appeals effective immediately. Any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. All right. It's a coming out party of sorts here. The next item on our agenda is something we're all looking forward to. The Penrose LLC is going to present on the 456 Queen Anne Road property. It's across the street from the parking lot and the bus station, I might add. Perfectly positioned.
Thank you, Don.
Larry,
Larry
before you
Brown.
go any further, just to let me make sure that you know, your new member is sitting right over here, and I expect him to be at your next meeting.
I expect him as well. We've communicated several times. Just so
Terrific.
I can enforce that. He's there.
How are you going to enforce that?
I got some pretty mean daughters.
All right. You got to do is ask.
Strongly encouraged, probably.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Don.
Come on, Larry.
Thank you. No, I'm very pleased that Jeff is going to be our member. Sometimes people get that confused. He's not a liaison as in other committees. He's your member of our trust, and that's important.
Just to make everybody in the room understand that while he is sitting in that august body of yours, he will be there as a member of your board, not as a selectman. We supply him from us, but he's independent of us once he meets.
Well, I appreciate it. Amy, I'm Larry Ballantyne. I'm currently the chair of the Harwich Affordable Trust. And we have a couple of our members here tonight with me. Brendan Lowney is here. And Julie is ex-member, but she was a critical part of our discussion for the last couple of years. So thanks for coming. Going back,
For the record, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
What was her last name?
no, what did I say? This is a private joke, which I wish Joe wouldn't bring up, but he did.
I couldn't resist. Thanks.
Don't bother, it's not offensive. I called her Kennedy a couple of times in a CPC meeting. And so really still holds a grudge, so. I do also wish to, looking around the room, recognize, I see Richard Waystack is part of the audience and Don Howe. We're part of the initial crew that got the property for us that we're building on 405 Queen Anne Road. Very much appreciate that. I also want to give my thanks to Joe Powers, as his role as the staff, and Brianna as our town advocate. moving forward. Let me just briefly state, I'm going to be real short, but this, in terms of building, this started with working with Laura Schufeld, and she's the director of the community assistance of the Mass Housing Partnership. She's been an invaluable resource for every town on the Cape, quite frankly. She's the expert we all go to. She, working with the consultants, Bowler Design Consultants, came to us with a conceptual plan, along with a lot of engineering that's been taken into account by Penrose on the drainage, the wetlands, the open space, traffic, and so on. We use that conceptual plan and their information to formulate our RFP, which we then went out in actually over about a year and a half ago. And part of that then criteria for the RFP was that we could build up to 90 bedrooms, and 42% of those would be, 42 of those would be 80% AMI, which is the average medium income. 10 of those would be less than 30% of that, and there were 8 we could go up to 100%. Another way of looking at it is we were looking for 36 one-bedroom apartments, 18 two-bedroom, and 6 three-bedroom apartments to give us a range of housing for the people who that live here in Harwich or in our immediate area. We had 3 proposals to our RFP. All 3 were well done. They met our criteria. They all came to us, all 3 came to us with strong experience and strong financial backgrounds. We formed a committee, a subcommittee, to review the proposals and bring it back for a full vote. Penrose called our attention primarily because we'll see their presentation tonight, but we love their design. The other 2 had 1 or 2 larger buildings. Penrose, when you see their draft design, is one larger building and a series of small buildings around it, which we felt would fit more into our Cape Cod culture and appearance that we're all looking for. So they got our attention, and we've been taking more time than I had hoped for, working through the land disposition agreement and the usual process. But here we are. We officially signed the contract a month ago, approximately. Don't hold me to that. I know Peter's very detailed. Don't hold me to that date exactly, but
I want to know the minute of the
the
day.
minute. That's right. I figured that. And so they made this presentation to our trust at our last meeting. We were really, it was well done. We're very impressed with the work they've put behind it. And this, I look to this meeting tonight in front of you, our select board, as being our official kickoff of getting this out to the public, to inform them where we are, open it up for discussion. This is a draft. Part of their charge is to hold a series of public meetings to inform the public, to get information in, so that when we start getting the process, we'll have this fully, I know this never happens, but we always hope we have a fully engaged public, that we've listened to everyone and are moving ahead with what we know is, and I take past concern, we do need to look at zoning as well, but we also need this type of housing, and this is a perfect location. It's, I think, fairly modern in concept, and we're really excited about moving ahead. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Carmen Chung, who's the Regional VP, and I'll ask her to sit at the desk. I'll pull up a couple chairs for the rest of the crew and ask Carmen if you can introduce people, and we'll start and I'll, well, Don, you're in charge, so we'll see where we go next. I'm going to be here, of course.
Actually, I was going to ask you a pop question here. You've been sworn in?
Not yet, just got
Okay,
work here.
so that leaves you with you and 1 other member who are members
We're not-
currently?
Right. We have 1 member right now, but we're not going to.
Again, you don't have to open up a meeting because you don't
We're
have a
not open-
quorum. That's why I'm asking.
Okay, good point. I figured, well, good, we're okay then.
Yes, that was my point. That was my point.
And plus, if there's a question, I'll just tell them to shut up so there's no discussion. We have that type of meeting, Jeff, we're very informal.
Me
Very
too.
aggressive tonight, Larry, very aggressive.
Okay, thank you, Don. It was-
Am I allowed to move on here, Larry? Here?
Larry and I have different definitions of brief.
Yeah. If you could just identify who you are,
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Larry. I'm Carmen Chung. I oversee the New England Regional Office for Penrose.
I'm Ryan Kirchhoff. I'm a developer with Penrose on Carmen's team in New England.
So we're very excited to be here today. As Larry said, we responded to RFP last fall and are very thankful for the trust for putting their trust in us, basically, with this site. And we always like to say that our goal is to help communities create a community that meets their vision. We're not really developers that go around buying land and trying to force, plop a community in that doesn't fit with local character. And I hope that our first draft, that what we would like to propose here, to the most part conforms with what you think reflects community character, and we look forward to comments, discussions. This is really just the start, and we know that there is also a lot of excitement for this, to see this move forward. So we're ready, willing, and able to move as fast as the town would like us to. And Ryan will be the project manager for this development, and he'll actually introduce the rest of our team and run us through the presentation.
Yeah, sure, happy to do that. So thanks, Carmen. Before diving in, just want to reiterate what an amazing privilege and opportunity it is to be working with you and with the trust here in Harwich. This is not a type of parcel that comes along all the time. It is situated in such a uniquely advantageous spot, and the fact that it has been, the product of this commitment from the Housing Trust to have this land specifically for affordable housing is remarkable. And so Carmen said the word, you heard Larry say it, we're so excited to be here and work with this community on this. So before I dive in and talk a little bit about who we are as Penrose, introduce ourselves or reintroduce ourselves for folks that looked at the RFP response last year, just want to briefly touch on the folks that are here with us. So again, Carmen and myself from Penrose. Paul Adman is on the line, I believe, from Union Studio Architects. They'll be the architects on the project. Behind me is Michelle Crowley from Crowley Cottrell, the landscape architects on this project, with whom we've worked on many different projects, including here on the Cape. And Angela Botto is here as well from Bowler, the civil engineers on this project. So we think this is really an A team. We're really excited to work with, and I think there's some really great ideas in what we are showing. Again, this is the proposal that was in our response a year ago. We were working with a somewhat limited amount of information at the time, what was provided to us within the RFP. We're learning more every day. We will continue to learn more every day, and part of that is hearing from folks like yourselves as we continue to evolve and iterate on this proposal. So briefly about Penrose, and Carmen said a little bit of this, but we're a national developer of mixed income and affordable housing, been in business for about 50 years, and again, Carmen and I are on now 7 folks that work out of the New England office, working in Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. And we are what we refer to as a soup to nuts developer, owner, and operator of affordable housing, meaning we are with a project through all of its different stages, from the drawing on the back of the envelope, the initial concept meetings, the conversations with the community, all the way through design, financing, permitting, the actual construction process, and lease up. And then we have our own affiliated management company, Penrose Management Company, or PMC, who then operates the buildings in the long term. We are, as Carmen kind of mentioned, we are a build and hold developer. We are not a developer that builds and then turns around and sells. And that, I think, gives a unique level of scale within housing developers, definitely within affordable housing developers, that means we are in the communities where we build for the long term. We are a neighbor, a community member, a partner, we hope, in these communities for many, many years where we build. So that's part of why we take the collaborative approach that Carmen described very, very seriously, and is part of why we're so happy to be with you and kicking this off today. So these are our projects across Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. I won't go through all of these. We do all sorts of different affordable housing typologies, but I will draw your attention to this kind of critical mass that we've started to build in Cape Cod and around Cape Cod. We know and have deep appreciation for the crunch for really housing of all types, but affordable housing specifically here on Cape Cod. And so in working in communities like Eastham, Orleans, just off Cape in Wareham, now in Chatham in pre-development, we are constantly learning more about the challenges that are faced by the Cape and are really motivated to be a force for good in helping create more housing stability for Cape residents. Carmen kind of mentioned this, but we are all about this idea of a shared vision, crafting a shared vision with the communities that we work in, right? We do that in part because we, like I said, want to be a long-term neighbor in the communities where we work, also because we want to be in the conversation for the next one, right? We want people to be proud of the buildings that we develop and, be proud of their own commitment to affordable housing in their community. So this is, as Carmen said, just the start. We have worked in our RFP response to try to address what we think we heard, what we think we read in the RFP, but we know there's plenty more to learn and happy to hear feedback from you. So with that, I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna hand over to Paul, hopefully who can hear us, and hopefully we can hear Paul, who's gonna talk a little bit about Union Studio and their good work here. So Paul.
Thank you, Ryan. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can.
So, hi, members of the board. My name is Paul Anteman. I'm a principal at Union Studio Architecture and Community Design. We're very glad to be here with the team presenting to you our shared vision of the site at Queen Anne Road. Union is a missions-based firm. We use the mission to use the power of design to enrich lives and strengthen communities. And we look to partner with our clients and the communities that we work in to improve upon the fabric and the life of those residents and really look at solving the housing crisis, and particularly here on Cape Cod. Our experience, if we can advance the slide to the next one, please, over the last 7 or 8 years has really given us the leverage to look at how to integrate housing and find solutions for the housing crisis on Cape Cod. 7 or 8 years ago, we collaborated with Cape Cod Commission to look at opportunities in Orleans, Eastham, Falmouth, Hyannis, and Sandwich, which were really sort of a roadshow to help communities identify sites, talk about housing opportunities, and really take a hard look at how housing historically has been developed in Cape Cod and surrounding communities that are contextual to those in specifics. So you can see that from that we created a document called The Missing Middle, which really looks at a range of housing types, primarily in the smaller multifamily 4 to 6 to 8 units of housing that offer a variety of housing types from single family to walk-ups. And those are also in scale and character that you can see throughout Cape Cod. But if you, next slide, if you look at a building, you may not recognize it as a multifamily. As you can see on the left, these are examples in Falmouth and Sandwich. If you press the next slide, Pleasant Street, both Stack Flats, Main Street, and Sandwich, which are collectively, you could get 8 units on 0.4 acres, which translates to 20 dwelling units an acre in Falmouth and 18 in Sandwich, but you really don't understand it at that density. We were able to work with a partner in Hyannis with a Sea Captain's Row, which will really push that limit to 25 dwelling units per acre, but really is in character with the downtown Hyannis area. So with that, we took this and are really applying it to this site. Next. These are examples of the Sea Captain's Row, and another project in Newport, which is a larger typology. That building on the lower left is really 12 units, but it's configured in a 2-story building type. Next. So I'll now talk a little bit about the site itself. I think everyone is familiar with, so I won't belabor the aspects and with the location of it. But this here is an aerial of the current condition. Next. This is a site survey really identifying some of the land features of it, which most people are very familiar with. And it's a fairly large site because there is a pathway that bisects, let's say, a north parcel and a south parcel, but our charge is to look at the south portion of this town land. Next. And this proposed site plan is really looking at a neighborhood plan that integrates different typologies from smaller building types, which are townhouse style, to a small multifamily of 4 units in a building. And it's a single ingress and egress off of Queen Anne Road, clearly because of safety reasons. We really did not and could not access from Route 124. That is right at a point where it's an on and off ramp from Route 6. So that would not be a very safe condition without considering some major improvements of traffic lights and other infrastructure improvements. So our in and out is primarily from one point, but as you enter into the site, it's arranged in a loop circular fashion to create a very large community space, community green, which Mish will talk about a little bit in her presentation. And it's focused around a community building, which has a community room, a Penrose management office suite and maintenance shop, as well as a small fitness room for the residents. What we've also incorporated is parking along the street as parallel parking for the most part around the street network, and then in some cases on the plan west, head-in parking in front of those 2 buildings on the far left. But if you can see on the north part, there's also a little parking area there with a drive lane that would preserve a future connection to the north parcel. What we wanted to do was preserve that opportunity for other housing and development opportunities, and not cut it off not cut it off from our proposal, but rather extend it and integrate it for future opportunities. Next, please.
So I'm going to take over here.
Yeah.
My name is Michelle Crowley. I am a landscape architect from Boston. I'm principal of Crowley Cottrell Landscape Architecture. Done a lot of work on the Cape, as well as throughout some of those other Massachusetts properties that Ryan was showing you. And we're always really excited to work with Penrose. They're really one of the only developers that bring a landscape architect in at the very beginning of a project, instead of sort of an afterthought. And what we've been able to do is really look at the topography of the site, that for this is, once we get a project, we really go in and find out where are the existing trees, where can we save things, where can we use topography, and really work with the site rather than just completely clear cutting. And so that's always a goal. It's not always, we can't always pull it off because of certain grade change, septic, drainage, all that, but we do our best to keep as much as possible, especially around the edges, to help with scale and buffering and all of that. So this particular site in the two previous slides was a big purple area. That is an area that is all filled with invasive material that will take some time to get rid of. But there's not a very, in the center of this site is not a lot of desirable things. Where there are on the outsides, where we are trying to save a lot of the trees around the perimeter, are some decent trees. And so, and we'll look for some nuggets in the middle where we can to just, again, help with scale and making this place feel like it's in a place rather than it could be anywhere. Sometimes developments feel like they could be placed from anywhere. So this keeps it in the scale of the community. We are showing the larger green, or two green areas, and the majority of that area is below that is septic and leaching fields and all of that. So that it's busy underground, but we're hoping that we can have a nice open space for kids to play. We are showing like an outdoor pergola where there could be grills set up and the community can be outside on the green. Further up on the north, we're showing an area where there's community gardens. And then near the community center, we're showing an area for a playground, which could be a playground similar to what's shown, or a little more natural play. That's all stuff we'll start developing as we go. The next slide. Oh, you have it. Thanks. Just looking at then trees and shrubs that we will bring back here. These are all native and naturalized plants in New England, using a variety of deciduous as well as some evergreen if there's for screening, but then the deciduous will have fall color. We'll bring flora and fauna into the property. And so that it really feels like these houses are among, you know, not crazy English gardens, but definitely there's greenery there, and it's not just open green space. So we're excited to start developing the landscape for here. Thanks.
Thanks, Mish. All right, I think I'll go back to Paul if you want to talk through some of the architecture.
Certainly can. Thank you. So here is our artistic rendering of the envisioned plan. We haven't looked at any colors quite yet because we don't want to get down that rabbit hole of color by committee too soon. But what we've done is we've really looked to Cape Cod traditional architecture, materials, scale, and detailing to bring our buildings to life. And we've also are looking to the Cape Cod Commission's Community Design Technical Bulletin, which outlines these sort of guidelines for architecture and design that is compatible and contextual to Cape Cod communities. Next. Without belaboring the details of the building floor plans, we are, as I mentioned and has been mentioned before, the units we are going to be offering range from 1 bedrooms to 3 bedroom units at varying sizes, but predominantly per the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, which is the mass housing sort of agency that provides us with standards and guidelines for housing. And so we will also be proposing ADA units per their guidelines, as well as the Massachusetts Access Accessibility Board. Next. Here is an elevation of this particular building type, which is 4 one-bedroom apartments, 2 above 2. And you can see that we're proposing traditional lap siding, running trim, double hung, or maybe casement windows based on the efficiency standards that we want to achieve. Asphalt shingle roofing and front porches and rear porches for the townhouses or rear patios. Next. This here is one of those townhouse units with 3 individual townhouses. So it's entering on the ground floor at the front with a living, dining, and kitchen on the ground floor with an exterior door to a private patio and a storage shed. The second floor is 2 bedrooms and a full bath. So very simple. And then also in the elevations, scaling the proportions simple and economical, but very appropriate to Cape Cod. Next. Here's a plan with that 2-bedroom townhouse style on the left, 2 of them, and then a 2-bedroom ADA all 1-floor living apartment on the right. And that translates into one portion of this building being 2 stories and another being 1 story. So that allows some nice variety throughout the neighborhood so that it's not all 2 stories marching around the green. I should point out that all of the buildings are going to be plus or minus 30 feet, most likely less than, because I think we can easily get achieve 30 feet with a 2-story building and with an appropriate roof pitch. Next, please. This here is another townhouse style that incorporates a 3-bedroom and 2 bedrooms in one building, with a little variety to have the 3-bedroom have a gable facing the front and a little larger porch to give a little bit of variety to the building types. Here's another with a 3-bedroom ADA unit, so all 1-floor living, and then the elevation translates to something like this. And then the community building, which I mentioned before, as a sort of a multi-purpose room for the residents to use, a fitness room, as well as management and maintenance. And I think that Penrose will probably be able to tell you a little bit more about their management and on-site presence at here on Queen Anne Road. Next, please. Yeah, that concludes my presentation on the architecture.
Excellent. Thanks, Paul.
You're welcome.
Well, I want to wrap up here shortly so we can let you all offer any comments or questions. Just in terms of next steps and where we're headed from here. So now that we have the agreement that was signed roughly a month ago, as mentioned before, now we're in a due diligence period where we're going to start having some folks go on site to do fresh survey. We've already gotten new title studies underway. We'll do a fresh environmental site assessment by an environmental professional, probably some soils testing eventually to see what's in some of that fill that was mentioned earlier, so that can be taken into account in the designs. Those are all to feed into the first round of drawings beyond these kind of conceptual drawings, which will be schematic drawings. The goal here is to get on the path to going through zoning process this year, and ultimately the tax credits that the state awards for this type of housing, low-income housing tax credits, they are awarded basically on an annual drumbeat. The annual round in Massachusetts is typically in January or February, and there's a pre-application at which the state basically says, oh, yep, you're invited into the round, you're ready. That pre-application is usually in November. So our target for this project is to submit a pre-application, and a prerequisite for that is for the zoning to be in place. So that's our target, is to kick off that process kind of rolling through the late summer and into the fall. And the public outreach process will run in tandem with that. What gets submitted in that process is still relatively early stage drawings, and we still want to continue listening and hearing what folks think makes sense here and what that kind of shared vision is. Anything you want to add to that? No?
Perfect.
Okay. Well, with that, I'll stop talking and happy to.
That doesn't mean we will.
Questions or comments? Please, I wouldn't dare stop.
Before we dive too deeply into this, because we haven't mentioned this heretofore, talking about community involvement. I could have talked forever with Richard about the property and about Jimmy Marsline's desire to have a legacy of affordable housing, but I can tell you right now, none of this would have been possible without the CPC agreeing to, as an article of faith, funding the trust, not once, but a number of years, right, Joe? There were a number of grants that they gave in the roughly $500,000 range. This could not have been possible because this was the poster child for an affordable housing trust. We're in between a town meeting, something came up that was going to be gone, and that opportunity would never be seen again. As you know, the property is across the street from a bus station, a parking lot, highways can convey people. So, but again, the linchpin to this was the Community Preservation Committee, and you have my thanks for hanging in there with us early on.
From a fellow CPC chair. Well done.
And just to frame this a little bit, and then I'm going to open up the rest of the board. Jimmy was kind of a remarkable guy, but he had his own affordable housing program. I mean, he built places where you could rent to buy, and he wistfully talked about his properties. The reason that you're not seeing trees there is that was a pasture. Mm-hmm. And he raised animals there and across the street. But he always knew that that was a property that would be valuable to develop like that. And my own ask would be, as you traverse through this, is try to do a focus workshop with the Cape Verdean community, because without them and without Jimmy, there is no this.
Thank you.
And with that, we're opening up pretty much any board member.
I'd love to hear from some of the others first.
Okay. Jeff?
Well, thank you all for being here, and thank you to Larry and Julie and all the parties who, Don, from the very beginning, all the parties who made this get to this point that we're at today. And I am so thankful that Penrose is doing the work. I sat in on a meeting a long time ago and was super impressed with how you all operate. And it's just continuing to be impressive as you make your pitches tonight. This is a LIP program, a local initiative program with the town of Harwich. Is that correct? This is a friendly 40B,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
To me, that's very important.
Yep.
That shows the partnership that the town of Harwich can work with a developer and put something together that is truly going to move the needle. I look forward to the next steps. This is really something else that, you put in front of us here, but, I know, I'm sure the public knows, everybody knows, this is just the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really excited to be on the Affordable Housing Trust, working with the amazing people there. I hope I can keep up, to be quite honest. So I'm just really excited to see how this moves along. And I think I speak for the rest of the board. If there's anything we all can do to help that process, we're here to be part of it.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Appreciate that.
Anita?
Oh, my, thank you. Hi, I just have one question, and I'm new to the board. So how many units are going to be proposed for this development?
It's 60 units. 60 units, 90 bedrooms, which is what was in the RFP.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Mhm.
And thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
And before I hit it off, building on what Jeff said, the real advantage of this is you can do a hostile 40B and wind up with only 25 out of 100 units being affordable and everything else is market. This is being designed specifically to max out affordability and you get to 100, but you don't get above that. It's not a commercial endeavor that you're using 40B to be able to bring a lot of market rate housing you wouldn't be able to get otherwise.
That's right.
So, Mark?
Sure. I love your common green area. I can envision kids playing soccer out there. I love that community building. The question I have is, 90 bedrooms, correct?
Correct.
How many parking spaces do you have?
We're modeled at 1.25 per, so I believe that is 75 off the top of my head.
And it's hard for me to decipher on your plan whether that is this, it's all parallel parking along the perimeter road on the interior, is that it?
Not entirely, but the majority of it, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, but the majority of it is parallel parked around. And I think Paul can speak more to this, but I know part of the thought process there is, especially for units that are looking out towards the common space in the middle, orienting the parking that way changes the perspective from the units so much, where you're looking out onto the green space rather than a parking lot. For the approachability of kids trying to cross the street, doing so with a much narrower street than would otherwise be the case if it was head-in parking or a parking lot, is something that we thought was reflective of traditional Cape design. And I don't know, Paul, anything you want to add to that? I'm sorry. No, go on.
I think the fact that also it's parallel parking also has a calming effect for traffic because it feels like a tighter street, and it, without a parking lot, I think, like you said, the area will feel more like a street as opposed to, it'll feel like every other street where is a tighter space.
Paul, anything to add?
You did a great job.
Sorry.
No, I don't have anything to add. You nailed it.
And I assume it just, the renderings just don't give a sense of all that parking there, which is probably great because you don't want to make
Yep.
a big parking lot. But is this all going to be stick-built, or do you utilize any modular construction?
I think we haven't quite ventured into doing modular. It's likely going to be stick-built. It's something that we look at periodically. We do have one project somewhere else that is doing modular, and they haven't quite seen timing or cost savings yet. It is a bit riskier because you are paying a large deposit way ahead of time, and if that factory goes down, what do you do? So it's something that we look at periodically, but currently this is envisioned to be stick-built.
And last question, estimated groundbreaking date roughly? And I know you have a process to go through, but just a rough idea?
Yeah, so one of the things is that because there is such a housing crisis across the entire state, there are a lot of projects that basically compete for these resources at the state level. Likely what happens after if we're able to submit an application in January, and that's if we get zoning approval by the pre-app, most likely, most projects have to apply more than once. So that means if we're applying a second time, that's 2027 that we would apply, and they make awards usually in the summer. So we're looking at a groundbreaking, or like probably end of 2027. So it's a lot of, in this kind of business with getting these resources, it's hurry up to get ready for the application, show the state that you're shovel ready, and then you wait in line for resources, basically. And I think a big part of the story and what will be compelling to the state is how the town with the trust and with the CPC work together to provide resources to make this project feasible by buying the land. All these things will help show the state that the town is supporting this project, and that helps tell the story at the state level to push it closer to the front of the line. Those are always things that we and the state really likes to see. So we'll do our best to get this pushed forward as quickly as we can. But there are a lot of projects and communities competing for these scarce state resources.
Thank you. Appreciate you all being here. And just to clarify, before I jump into some of my questions, the state resource you're referring to is money, correct?
Yeah, there are tax credits, low-income housing tax credits.
Okay, thank you. Typically, at this point, what have you seen as far as you said you have to reapply the next fiscal year? Have you typically seen approval on the second year, or sometimes does it go to the third year?
So sometimes we've seen like 1.5, sometimes we've seen 2, sometimes we've seen 3. It all really is a juggling. I think 2 on average is kind of reasonable.
Okay, thank you for that. If I could continue. So, and I'm sure you present all this information during the bid process, but just so I get a better understanding, so you folks that are the developer, do you have dedicated construction crew, or do you bid all this out?
We would we have a general contractor to bid out the project to subs. So there's a few general contractors that we work with across the state. But yeah, it would be a general contractor that would do the work. We don't have our own.
Right, so, but you do have dedicated general contractors that work with you folks, not for you, but with you?
Yeah, we have general contractors that work with us.
Okay. And as far as, you know, as you alluded to on one of your your slides, quite a few projects. How many are active projects right now?
At the state level?
Within I think you had the Northeast region.
Oh, with us?
Yeah.
With our New England office, with the Massachusetts pipeline right now, we only have one other project that is actively applying for resources right now.
About how many projects are active?
Like including under construction?
Yeah, so primarily under construction.
Yeah, I would guess 9 to 12, maybe?
Yeah.
And I'm not holding you to a date, but what's a typical timeframe for completion on those?
Construction period or?
No, those actual 9 to 12 projects, are they due to be completed in a year, 2 years from now? Like, what's the approximate?
Yeah, I think.
In other words, are they brand new or are they well on their way?
Most of them are well on their way. We have projects that are kind of 6 months from completing, and we have projects that are closing right now, and we have a church that we're working on that we're turning into housing. That's gonna be a 3-year construction period. So every project really varies.
Right. As far as when your GC puts it out to bid, do you folks have any say on the subs? Do you get any input at all?
No, we don't. We let the general contractor pick their subs because ultimately they're gonna be responsible for making sure that the work is done, regardless of kind of who their sub is. If their sub suddenly fails, they're still responsible for making sure they have a replacement. So we try to not get involved with who the sub picks.
Okay, so if you folks don't, then that means the trust wouldn't have any input either.
Yes.
In other words, if we wanted to try to give work to a local contractor, we don't have that ability.
Okay.
Just asking.
Yeah.
As far as bandwidth, you know, obviously, we hear all the time the trades are stretched, right? What are you seeing for their bandwidth right now? You know, I know you've got a couple projects on the Cape that you're trying to get up and running. What's the bandwidth been like, you know, as far as their availability?
I think part of it is that what's happening with other markets, right? Commercial lab is kind of slowing down. Office is slowing down. So I think with that, we have seen people are busy, but there's more attention now to some of our projects. Some of our projects have gotten reduced. We've heard like reduced pricing, but now with tariffs that might change. So I think that right now it's not that it's not like the contractors can't get subs attentions anymore. There's more of a balanced market is what we're hearing.
Okay, a little more availability.
Yeah.
All right, great. Couple of them I'll skip because there may be some thoughts for future, but as far as, I'll talk to the one that I think is probably gonna be the item you hear the most about, which is the access on Queen Anne Road. That is feet away, and I don't know exactly what it is, from the intersection. You take a left onto Queen Anne off the highway at 4 PM on a weekday, and that traffic's already backed up to Oak Street. This doesn't help.
Yeah.
There's another project on the other side of Queen Anne, has nothing to do with you folks, but that's another concern, right? People
we've
are all
heard about
concerned about what's going on with Queen Anne Road.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. pretend to be a traffic manager, a roadway engineer, or any of that. I heard the gentleman state that, the issues where the current property is, the development on the, I'll call it the south side, since someone referred to the other piece as the north side. Is there potential when the north side gets developed for an egress onto 124? Or, I guess, let me put it this way. Have you folks and/or the other gentleman, I'm sorry, I forget his name, worked with the Commonwealth on some of these road conditions to make improvements, whether it's, I think you mentioned a traffic light. I'm not a big fan of traffic lights, but something along those lines where if this gets developed to a point where it's gridlock for everybody, then nobody's happy.
Yep.
So have you had experience working with the Commonwealth to make road improvements on, something like 124?
So there's another project that's out in the Berkshires that's also on a main, like, DOT road. And I think it's hard to push DOT it's really hard to push DOT. I think there are certain recommendations we can make, and we can apply for funding to help, like we've applied for Mass Works money or other funds to help make those infrastructure upgrades, but I don't know of places where unless DOT has already prioritized it in their list of things to do, where we're able to elevate, but we're happy to work with the select board and our design team and engineering team to see if we can have at least a conversation. We will definitely be engaging a traffic engineer, and they that works on the Cape a lot, that knows DOT, what they like and don't like, and we're happy to engage in those conversations.
Again, my hunch is that you're gonna hear a lot of that when you do your community outreach.
Yep.
It's a heavily traveled road.
Yep.
It's at a interesting point in that road where it's, right before the light, or right after the light, depending on which way you're going. And so I think you'll hear a lot of kickback there. I think at that point, Mr. Chair, I'll be quiet.
Is that a motion?
Yes. Second.
Building off what he said, you got about 6 weeks to get real data. If you don't do it then, it's going to be pointless for you to do something in October, to do a traffic study, because Pete's right. The traffic on Queen Anne Road routinely in the summertime backs up beyond Oak Street, which is well beyond wherever you're going to build your road. So it's important for you to know where the high water mark is. And what you do with it after that, it would have, for my personal purposes, I would have hoped that you could have come up with some sort of horseshoe where you could go north of the eastbound lane entrance for Route 6, so that it wouldn't have competed with that, but just to loop it so that you weren't going to be making, you're right, the left turns either way, coming from Queen Anne Road or coming out, you're going to be stuck in that complex at certain times of the day. We just want you to know the reality. You've got 6 weeks to see that. Jeff, do you have anything more you wanted to?
The only thing I was going to add is the level of comfort that I have knowing that you're also going to be managing the project after completion. To me, that really lends to the long-term success and beauty and upkeep and all the things that we have seen typically not be kept up with. I love the fact that you're going to see it through all the way and then manage the property afterwards.
Just to comment on that, what we always do on our properties is make sure that we have a full-time property manager that sits in that community building and a full-time maintenance person that sits in that building. So they'll be there during normal business hours, and if there was an off-hour issue with like the water or anything like that, they can call the maintenance person. They're on call. So that's part of how we make sure that the property continues to be successful and look like it did on day one, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Joe Powers, Town Administrator. You had talked in your next step slide about the zoning process, so I am putting everyone on alert. I'm going to use acronyms. So I heard you say low-income housing tax credits, or what we refer to as LIHTC. And I also heard you mention for the 40B, you're looking to do the local initiative project or program? Program, thank you, which we referred to as a LIP. What's your time frame on going through the LIP process vis-à-vis your 40B comprehensive permit? So I know you're working backwards from January, February for LIHTC, sometime in November, but the town has some experience with a prior potential LIP that did not pan out. But I think the reference was already made, it was more market rate than anything else. So what's your time frame on all of that? Because you've already heard some other projects that are ongoing for the town that's impacting our attention as well.
Sure. So first step would be putting in a PEL, project eligibility letter to the state, which is something that we can do relatively soon. I think we're trying to gather some of the more on-site information so we can include that in our package. But that's something that I would hope to have in the next month or two. After that, then, assuming all comes back from the state, yep, eligible, good to go, then we would make an application to the Zoning Board of Appeals for the comprehensive permit process. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think the linchpin will really be how quickly the state can get the project eligibility letter back to us, because we can't submit the 40B application until we have that letter. So I would think that we would try to submit in August or September.
Okay. Further, so to that end, the prior board to this group is familiar with project eligibility. The other project that was mentioned elsewhere on Queen Anne, the town went through a rigorous process on that project eligibility letter. So recognizing that this meant to be what was referred to as a friendly 40B, I'm a town administrator, they're just 40Bs. I don't give the adjectives, however, recognizing that this is meant to be a town supported project, would you have this board and our town departments weighing in on the project eligibility? Because I know in other procedures, it comes back to the town anyway. So I guess what I'm trying to get to is they're going into their summer schedule, but they are still going on a weekly basis. Just try to plan for all of those activities that you're going to be working on day in and day out ahead of a potential filing in November of '25, ahead of a submission for January, February of '26. Where do you see that coming up? July, August, or in the fall?
For,
Project eligibility, local initiative discussions, any of that, through the select board? Or are you not contemplating that?
so in our experience for the project eligibility letter, we provide, I guess, a draft of it, and if there is a desire for us to come to present that to the select board before submission, we can do that. The materials would be largely similar to what we've presented today. Is that what happened at the previous, like there was a presentation at the select board meeting?
There were several, if I may, Mr. Chair, there were several discussions between the now applicant and the town through the select board. Again, it was not a lip,
Yeah.
so it had a different flavor to it, so to speak.
Okay.
But really what I'm trying to get to is sort of give everybody in the community a sense of, they're going to hear 40B. We had a 40B project that was proposed about 2 years ago, I think, off of Sisson. And the one that's already underway at the other end of Queen Anne. So that's what my questions were trying to get to is, what can the board expect for discussions? What can the community expect for discussions? Because you've said zoning process, but we're focusing on outreach in public.
Understood. Yeah, so the PL, we'd be more than happy to present a draft and take comments on it. It is not a particularly cumbersome document. It's mostly site plan, some environmental information, site context, history of the site, things like that, at least in our experience. So it's something we can do, relatively soon. I think, late summer is more likely than fall.
But I guess-
It's happening within a context, is what Mr. Powers is trying to say. And there was one commercial project that did not fly ultimately, and there's a current project that's in front of the ZBA. So as far as our desire, we probably do want you to come back to get some buy-in.
Sure.
But there will not be an impediment. I mean, we're not going to take off a week and say you can wait another few weeks. So, but we do have an expectation you'd come back.
Okay.
I think I guess how we see it is that the PEL process is like check the box. The community engagement process can continue to be ongoing regardless of whether we have or haven't submitted the PEL. I take note of your comment that we should definitely make sure we listen to and speak with the Cape Verdean community. And in initial conversations, Larry has also mentioned that. And if there are any other venues or community groups, and we definitely will meet with the town staff to get their feedback on the plans. But if the select board has any other ideas or suggestions for other communities or community groups that we should definitely speak with, we're happy to take those too.
Yeah, actually, adding to what Pete said earlier, I suggest you get a car and go on a road trip somewhere around Friday afternoon on Queen Anne Road and see what I'm saying even before you get into a traffic engineer. It's going to be readily apparent. Joe?
One more point, if I could, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of the staff, so we have our community development team. I don't know if you've come into contact with them yet, but that's certainly something that we in administration can facilitate. So these are baseline conversations with representatives from all of our regulatory departments. And it's something that we've done before, I think, with great benefit for all parties. So
Excellent.
That's
we can
perfect.
certainly talk about that if you'd like.
Yes, that would be great.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And before Larry, first of all, is there anybody else on the board that has anything? And second of all, is there anyone from the public, from the audience here or online that wants to make any comments whatsoever? Mr. Waystack, I kind of suspected there would be a comment.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Richard Waystack. A previous speaker tonight talked about housing crisis. I've heard it at a couple of meetings recently. Is there a housing crisis? Go back to the 80s. The ratio of home price to income was about 3. Someone making $100,000 would buy a starter home in the $300,000 range. The last 5 years in this community, the average sale price was $550,000. This past year, it was $1.1 million. The income to price ratio is like 6.5 right now, double what a healthy housing policy was. Do we have a crisis? We do. And I want to congratulate both this board, the Affordable Housing Trust, the CPC, for picking Penrose. They've got a great, great reputation. And for those, and I keep hearing it at meetings throughout the community, is there really a housing crisis? Sit in my office sometime as a realtor to hear the people calling, do you have any apartments to rent? Do you have anything under $600,000 as a house to buy? There's one in Harwich right now. That's it. We have a housing crisis. This will help solve that. And I'm hoping to help Penrose in any way that we can to get this through, because being involved in the process with Mr. Howell and the Affordable Housing Trust, this is a good spot to build housing. Transportation's across the street. I know we're going to have some issues with Queen Anne parking. The folks who really are screaming about parking are people who have houses. What we're not hearing from are the people who don't have housing, because they're out working 2 and 3 jobs trying to make enough to live in an affordable rental in this community, which a market rate right now is a little over $3,000 a month. So thank you.
Before Larry, it's also worth mentioning, because Richard would know, he was involved in the transaction, this was all serendipitous. It's not only perfectly positioned in terms of upland and where it is in terms of amenities and everything, but I can't imagine, this was a magical moment in time, because there is no way this property could have been purchased for even twice as much as what we paid for it. This is our opportunity to seize the day. So, Larry.
I'm used to hearing before Larry, so. I did.
You want us to skip to the after Larry part, or?
I have comment, brought up the discussion of community development team, Joe. In fact, I sent an email, I might have got lost in the shuffle, suggesting that we schedule that sometime. Sure. And so that we're working on getting in front of the development, because that's an important meeting, as we talked about, department heads. From some of our discussions within our trust committee, We did talk about, traffic obviously is always a big discussion, and happy you brought that up. But if you note the plot diagram, there's a paper road between the south and north sides of Hassett Lane. And leaving that opening does give us an opportunity to use that lane to get onto 124 if it were possible. That's a state road, so it presents its own problems. But at least internally, we tried to keep that available as another possibility when we looked at the conceptual design. My final comment is thank you very much for allowing us to make this presentation. Thank Penrose. I'm really excited about this. As a trust, we're committed now to keeping you fully informed. And you have a member now, but we'll be sure we communicate often and thoroughly so that you know what's going on.
Any other comments? Well, thank you for coming in. We very much
Thank
appreciate
you.
the presentation.
Have a good evening.
You too. And thank you, trust members out
Thank you.
there.
Good night.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
would you take B first? I'll be right back for A.
B. Yes. All right, under new business, we're going to take B out of order from A. I had them send it out. We're not going to act on it tonight. I had them sent out because it was somewhat daunting. We would have had 4 liaisons for about 6 committees with the original list. I'm trying to work this out so that everybody gets at least 1 or 2 high-profile liaisons. But just to remind everybody, it's a telephone line. I mean, essentially, it's so that they have somebody they can talk to go to. It's not supposed to be a deliberative position. But having said that, before we put it on the agenda for next week, if anybody has any problems, because this is like 3-dimensional chess. There's 5 of us, and there's all sorts of committees. As it's been done in the past years, we want a horse trade, but try to do it in the next couple of days so that we can get a composite list so that it'll be able to be voted on. Is that all right with everyone?
I don't have a horse, but sure.
You don't have what?
I don't have a horse, but sure.
Okay.
Mark and I have already traded.
Really?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay. I would have offered more.
No, we can get you the info.
Yeah, if you could do it like Wednesday?
Yes, Wednesday noonish would be great.
Okay. Because I'm trying to get this stuff early enough so that everybody sees it out in the public. It's in our agenda bucket. All right, and everybody got it, right? I mean, the staff sent it out for me. Thank you. Obviously, we're going to be moving on to beyond that, too. Joe's not back, so C. This is really a tremendous juncture in time here. Mr. DeBacher is here, but the Harwich Town Band celebrating its 50th birthday. And that's a tremendous accomplishment that we're going to recognize. There's a draft of a proclamation that was given to you tonight. We're not going to act on it. It's not on the agenda to vote on it, but we will vote on it next week. And is there anyone interested? Just hear that. Anyone interested in presenting it to the? You're going to have a concert on Tuesday night.
Would you like me to say a few words about it?
Sure, but you're not here, so I need somebody on this end to say that they want to present it.
I'll present it. Just read the text.
Ultimately, but we're going to wind up with something that you signed, so it'll be on next week's agenda. You don't read it now. It's just for you to have so that you can look it over. If anybody's got any edits, again, Wednesday noonish would be our drop-dead date for that. But it's something that we really want to honor, and we really want to make sure that the town recognizes basically this juncture in time with the town band. They sound terrific, by the way.
Thank you. Ma'am.
Peter, you want to say something? Or?
If you don't mind, I won't take much of your time, but I can't say it too often. So thank you for placing this on your agenda here, and I appreciate it very much. So at times we hear the selectmen making wonderful proclamations.
For those folks who follow the charter, it's the select board.
Select Board, I beg your pardon, I was going to say that and I misspoke. The Select Board indeed. So Tom Youngie, our director of the band, and we said, why don't we see if we can have something done for us, the Harwich Town Band. And as you say, 50 years continuously, no interruptions, 4 conductors who succeeded one another without interruptions. So we do a lot. It was created in 1975. The first concert was performed in 1975 on Independence Day. That took place on a hay wagon that was drawn by 2 Clydesdale horses. You can read that, but I thought I'd put that in there. The band currently has 57 members, ever increasing, and we perform all sorts of things for the town, in the town, Memorial Day, Veterans Day, at the Cape Cod Community College here. We do the graduation. We start this year, our weekly concerts at 7 o'clock in Brooks Park for about 7 or 8 or 9 weeks, starting June 24th. And we've done this with great enthusiasm. If I may give you a small personal anecdote, some of you may remember me as having been a member of the planning board for a number of years. And on Tuesday nights, I would hear this band play in Brooks Park in the summer. And I said to myself, that's really what I want to do once I have completed some set of goals in the planning board. So my dad was a professional musician, and I played it when I was younger, hadn't played it for 45 years, so I had great trepidations to invite myself to that band. And then one of the newspapers, could have been yours, it said, the Harwich Town Band is looking for new members, and then the crucial sentence, auditions not required. And I told myself, I'm
That's
going
my
for
kind of
it. And I've been playing with it for about 8 years. I am an alto saxophone player in that band. It is a wonderful organization, and even members like you, if you ever have played an instrument, you're welcome to join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. So you'll have something for next week, then the next night you'd be presenting it then, Mark, if there's no objection.
No, but I'm probably going to request that they have to do it on a hay wagon with 2 Clydesdales.
I was going to suggest you're going to have to get a bigger gazebo.
That's, the select board is amenable to that. I wouldn't unwelcome it.
All right, well, doubling back, Mr. Powers, you
Thank
and
you,
I had a
Mr. Chairman,
conversation
and
about
thank you for
the
your indulgence.
miscellaneous
And
reappointments.
I heard no auditions necessary.
Exactly.
I'm breaking out my snare kit. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, what you have under item A for new business is a list of the miscellaneous appointments, so-called. But working with my team, what we've identified are, first of all, those staff members that by virtue of what they do for the town of Harwich have been identified in serving in external, so outside of the town of Harwich, in most cases on Cape Cod, public bodies. So you can see the list there, and in a moment, I will ask the board for an action on that. But before I get to that, and then you can see what we consider to be internal roles. So by virtue of certain job titles, these individuals serve in additional capacities. So an example would be the Assistant Town Administrator serves as the Americans with Disabilities Act Coordinator. The Fire Chief is also the Forest Warden, et cetera, et cetera. So the bottom half of that is by virtue of what they do as department heads, and these are appointments, if you will, that are affirmed by the administrator. So the top group, if you will, they vary as far as their terms and their requirements and all that. So the ask this evening, if the board is willing, is for to have you to affirm the list of the 2025 ex officio external public body appointments.
We need a motion to that effect.
Damn, I should have jumped on there.
These
So
are not the
moved.
regular committee appointments, as
Right.
Joe's trying to explain to you.
Right. Move to approve the 2025 miscellaneous reappointment of the ex officio external public bodies as printed in the agenda.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, just very quickly.
Sir.
As we become aware, if there's changes in that public body, if they've finished their work, we'll let the board know. So anytime there's any change to any of the columns that you see there, we'd let you know to then affirm the next appointment. Otherwise, they're technically indefinite.
Okay, there's a motion on the table. Any further comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I move to approve the 2025 miscellaneous reappointments of the ex officio internal roles as printed in the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for, affirm the internal roles. Further comment?
My thought was that you had indicated that because those are town administrators.
I would have thought that I thought that's a
those on
superfluous
for the
motion.
board, so to speak.
Damn it, I wanted to be.
It was your moment in time, but it is now past.
Remove.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so,
Mr. Chair,
yes, sir.
I move that we approve a special permit application for the Harwich Chamber of Commerce. 1 Schoolhouse Road for Wednesday night music, 5 to 6 p.m., 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., Wednesdays from July 2nd, 2025 through August 27th, 2025. Entertainment amplification.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I might point out that they tweaked the time a few years ago, and this is an ongoing request, and there's a heck of a great time to be had going down to LaPorte for these dates. Any further comment? Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief Considine was here. He had to step out. He gave me some comments that I can offer. We also have the executive director of the Harwich Chamber of Commerce on the line, so to speak. But I would tell you that staff recommends adoption of this. This is as we've done it for many years. While there may be road closures, the police has already endorsed this because this is no different than what they've done in years past.
Now, Cindy may want this to be her moment in time, but I have the distinct belief in always leave them wanting more. So unless you want to go more deeply into this, we're about ready to vote on it. She's in a silent movie.
Oh, sorry, I'm all set unless you guys have any questions. The lineup is fabulous. Can't wait to announce it tomorrow.
Okay, any further comment from the board? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Okay.
Look forward to seeing you all down here starting July 2nd.
Okay. All right, Mark had talked about this, and actually I think Pete did too at one point. We need to nail down a date and time for the non-resident taxpayers meeting, and the only parameters. Did I skip something? Ah, well, that's another one. Put another mark on it. Why don't we back up then? We have not had this discussion in the longest time. We may want to affirm our legal counsel, we may not, but this is not for a vote tonight. It's just to have a discussion that we need to invite in KP Law and any other firms that we may wish to ask questions of to see who's available and what they have to offer. So I think it's really important that we get to this in the summertime because we really had an obligation in the charter to review this yearly. And it's been a while. We've gone over bills, but we haven't really gone over, is this the right fit for us in terms of the law firm itself? I think Amy knew this is coming. It's not going to be a total shock to her. I had a conversation with her a week and a half ago that we were going to have a conversation and have them come in and make a presentation. So anybody have any preference about when that might be? Joe?
Not to interrupt the process, my recommendation to the board would be, this is a standard Mass General Laws, Chapter 30B. Similar to what you're doing with the search consultant, what I would recommend is that we can establish through an administration a very straightforward request for proposals for legal services, whereby you would indicate to the marketplace that you are looking to engage municipal legal services, which may or may not include the incumbent, and then within that, you have respondents come before you to explain how they operate. That way, you're operating under 30B requirements, because it is a procurement. We certainly expect the cost to be greater than $10,000. The cost should allow it to go under request for proposals rather than invitation for bid. It's not onerous, but it does give you the protection of a process.
And to that end, I guess I have the question on that. When's the last time we actually did an RFP that did what you suggest, where we asked for different
I
proposals?
can tell you it has not been in the last 6 years.
That's kind of the point I was trying to make. So and for my purposes, and I had this talk with Amy, I mean, there may be differences of opinion on the board, but that's one reason to eventually have them in face-to-face. It's not just a law firm, it's just who it is that you get to talk to in terms of what type of assignment they have. Amy, I think, is a terrific lawyer, but I have some misgivings about some others, and other people might think highly of the whole staff, but we need to be able to have that discussion somehow, or we're going to wind up just rolling into another year again with them just defaulting as legal counsel. So if that's something that you can help with as an RFP, then that is, I think it's a desire of the board to see what's out there and actually have a conversation with KP Law also if they choose to bid on it.
So if I may, on the one hand, you could invite your current counsel in. However, if you're looking to talk to multiple firms, I do recommend that you do it in accordance with the procurement laws, whereby you're seeking respondents to a proposal and you're questioning them during a regular process. So if you want to talk to your current provider, you can do that, but that's different from having other providers come in.
And it doesn't get you to the other people, it just gets you to that
Correct.
one conversation. So this is just a signpost on the highway here. I'm just saying that I'd like to schedule that kind of a meeting, but after, I think, given what was just recommended by the town administrator, I'd like to do it in accordance with a process of some sort so that we can have the broader conversation with a number of different possibilities as opposed to just calling our own counsel in. Does that sound reasonable?
Mr. Chair, if I may, just a question. So would we need as a board to vote to have the RFP go forward?
We would, but we're also going to have to vote. My point was, it's been 6 years. We'd also need to vote that we actually are voting to continue a relationship contractually with whomever, if it's KP Law. But yeah, just like any other RFP, we need to see the RFP, decide that that reflects what we're looking to do, and allow them to issue it. So does that sound like the process that everybody wants to follow, or do you just want to pull KP Law and have a discussion?
If I could continue.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see this as a greater conversation than just going forward with an RFP. I'd like this board to have an agenda item to discuss what we feel. Now, I'm all for looking at how we can save money on our legal bills. I think that's part of where this is coming from, if I've heard one of the other board members in the past. But I just think it needs to be a board discussion to get to the point where we then say we would like to send out an RFP, or then say I would like to just have KP Law come in.
In part, you're right, but the charter calls for us to actually do this yearly and make a review. We have not done that.
And I agree and appreciate that. I'm just, like I said, it looks like we have two roads to choose. One is an RFP road, and one is to ratify the current contract for the upcoming year. I think the board should have a discussion prior to putting an RFP vote on the table. That's my 2 cents, and I'm happy to go where the board wants to go with this.
Other comments? That's why this is on the agenda, so that we can have this discussion.
My only concern is we have a lot on our plate between the finance director and the town administrator. I think it's a great idea. I'm just wondering if we may want to, I know it should be done annually, put it off for a little while till we get some running room on what we're, the bigger things that I regard that we need to accomplish.
Each fiscal year, we're supposed to do this. So after July 1st, at some point, we should be doing that. Whether it is to just reaffirm the current arrangement or not. I could put it on for a fuller discussion and a possible vote, if that's what you want to do.
That would make me feel better.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
So Jim, put that in the bucket for tomorrow.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I asked Speaker to step back for a moment. There is an alert that was just presented on our phone, so I think it's just prudent to indicate that presently the Harwich Police and Fire Department are conducting a search and rescue at Red River. So the robocall just went out, so anyone watching television in real time this evening on Monday, June 16th, if anybody's aware of having seen a white male between the ages of 30 and 40 years old at Red River Beach at approximately 6:15 this evening, they are asked to reach out to the Harwich Police or Fire Departments immediately. Say thank you and sorry for the interruption.
Thank you for that. Julie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Julie Kavanaugh, Old Carriage Drive. And listening to your discussion, that's why I was just interested in this, because obviously on the previous board, we had some discussions near the end of my term about where to go with legal counsel. And I think that you definitely need a thorough process, whatever way. If you're going to have a couple different discussions, go the 30B way. But I think you have to be very careful in analyzing how you're going to move forward, because whether or not there's certain attorneys that people prefer, KP or what, the level of expertise is there, and there are other firms that could do that too, but you should do a thorough analysis, and you should be looking at the budget implications, because if you have a smaller firm and you're going out to specialists because you've engaged a smaller firm and now you need other expertise, you need to be able to see what that's going to do to your budget. And overall, I think that, we all know that we've spent plenty of money on attorneys over the last several years. I also think a concerted effort to really kind of centralize the contact to attorneys, because at times the chair, whoever that may be, in your case, you're the new chair, may be aware of information through administration or direct contact through attorneys that they can share with the board rather than multiple members calling the board. Just costs the board, the town, more money. So I think there's a process that could be improved, and I think that you need to do a thorough vetting of how you would proceed in any change of legal counsel and what the overall cost would be, in particular if you were to go with the smaller firm. So it sounds like you're going to have more discussions on that, and possibly a 30B, which would be a good process.
Thank you for that. And that is exactly what I'm hoping for, is a deeper dive, because notwithstanding what you just said, we've never actually said as opposed to whom, and is there anybody else we could talk to? So it's a good time. It's always good to look around and see who's doing what. And assuming that's the process you want to do, we'll put it on the agenda next week and we'll start fleshing it out. Pete?
Yeah, and so just real briefly, and it kind of touches on what Julie had to say and a comment Jeff made as well. I'm under no illusions that looking at a new firm or potentially changing firms is going to save us a penny. In fact, it might do the exact opposite. But what I would like still to see on the agenda is a conversation about the use of town council and the costs associated with such use. Julie just kind of hit on some points that I'd like to include in that discussion going forward. So again, whether this comes up prior or in conjunction with the next conversation on this process, the review process, I'm good with that. But I think, again, we as the board from last year put whether it was a goal or an objective out there to try to reduce the cost of legal, and by the numbers I'm looking at, we're going to exceed budget by about 50 grand. And I know we're not the only group that uses it, so there's a bigger conversation. That's my whole point.
And thankfully, our very own Natasha has unearthed something that's also going to be on the agenda next week, which is a policy to access legal counsel, which appears to be 20 years old. And I can think of two people on this board who might be familiar with it.
Again, trying to reduce costs back then.
That's kind of what it was. So that'll also be part of the packet, because it did specify how we do that. And Julie's right, we started getting to a point where pretty much everybody and their brother was calling legal counsel on their own.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you could wait a second, I just have to call counsel real quick. No, I reluctantly will not be here next week. This would be something that I would love to be part of the conversation, but I understand if you want to move it forward. And in the packet, it would be great to have like the last 5 years of council's annual totals so that we can have a reference.
I'm as interested in, given the whole process thought, I'm as interested in not just the dollar amount, but how many hits against hours that legal counsel was asked to provide to us over the last 5 or 6 years. because I suspect you're going to see an upward slope. Yeah, and that's part of the problem too, is we're not really controlling how much council we use, and then there's how much they charge. I mean, there's all kinds of things. Again, we haven't had a fuller discussion. If you want to wait, then that's fine, but I want to do it this summer so that we can, you know.
I'm just gonna not be here next week, but I will be here obviously after.
Is everyone here the week after that?
I don't even know what the date is.
30th, I
Just
will.
commit to it, and I'll tell you later.
June 30, I'll be here.
I will make
Thank you,
that.
Mr. Chair.
And just one comment I may make.
Anita?
As a former town clerk, I do remember that there was a policy put in place, and we adhered to that policy, and I was just going to ask what happened to the policy. Thank you.
Natasha
I was
has-
just going to ask what happened to that policy.
Natasha
'cause I
has done a
remember it
deep
well.
dive, and she has unearthed these things. I had more hair back then, by the way. Joe?
Outside of the select board and, say, land use, all requests for counsel by department still go through town administration. So we still adhere to the policy per se. And as you talk about this, I would also just ask that you keep in mind that you have what would be considered general government services, land use, local licensing, and of course, labor. So there are different
Flavors of it, yeah.
types of it that are all covered presently by KP law, but as far as departments and general government, they first have to get permission of town administrator.
I do not believe that Julie was intending to imply that it was staff that was making. I'm pretty sure I know where she's coming from, but we can have that discussion all together about how much access we have. Because I think when you see it in writing, it's not going to be a happy thought. It's burgeoning. And I'm not sure that we need legal counsel to tell us if it's okay for us to adjourn, for instance. So we have to reanalyze what we're doing and how much we actually ask legal counsel for advice. But I'll try to let me talk to each of you and try to figure out where we can come up with a time. But we do need to do that work session because we're not going to have that time once we hit September. You know that. Joe?
And then one last point on the 30B process, if you're looking to bring counsel in on a multi-year contract. So I would recommend a 3-year contract, not an annual. You should consider that the process would take about 6 months, and that's purposeful. It's not only going through the different firm presentations, but you may want to rely upon action of town meeting for the future contract. So you could contemplate the 30B process happening sooner with your conversations with the law firms, but you may want to time it for fiscal year '27.
And we could do that, but my lightning fast math tells me that if we wait another month or two, we're going to be right in the middle of the budget cycle for the warrant when you add +6. So we pretty much have to do no later than August, or we're going to mess ourselves up. We're going to be inundated with annual town meeting warrant stuff. So it's really important we start it. And we'll leave it at that. We'll talk tomorrow on the agenda about what we can do, but maybe we could start the process next week, and you're certainly going to be part of it because it's going to wind up being a slog. It's not, KP Law is not being fired. We're not going to move on from somebody, so you get the chance to answer pretty much get questions answered to anything that you got. But all we're really trying to do is get the thing launched.
I'll defer to you, Mr. Chair. It's fine.
Well, I'll talk to you about it too, then, and see what you're thinking. All right, so is everybody okay with that? We need to have a start. That's all I'm saying. All right, now we can get to what I was trying to not get to. Discussion and a date for non-resident taxpayers meeting. Once again, that's another one of those things where we've all lived here for a while. Just looking at what's been happening, summer starts really winding down now about the second week of August, more than at Labor Day. So it wouldn't be purposeful to hold the non-resident taxpayers meeting, say, August 28th, because you're not going to capture a lot of people at that point. But I'm hoping to come out of tonight, at least with a date and time, and then we can start coming up with the mechanism. I assume, we've done this in the past in different ways. I assume that we could possibly do like 4 or 5 minute podcasts with department heads to launch that so that it could stay on YouTube and memorialize it for anybody who wants to watch it after the meeting. But regardless of what we do, I mean, how we do it, we need to pick a date. See Mark with his date book.
You know, August sounds good to me. It's the,
It is a whole night, just so everybody understands that you're pretty much agreeing that that's what you're going to hand over the meeting to.
Oh, yeah, no, I think that is the night.
Yeah.
So, you know, it looks like August 4 or 11. I don't know.
What does everybody's calendar look
Yeah,
like?
That's what I was gonna say. I honestly can't tell you what my calendar looks like at that point, but, it's probable. I think I'm good.
Anita? I'll rely on my age-old comment, I have no life, so I'll be available.
that's fine with me.
What, that I have no life?
It's even better.
Either date?
Either date's fine with me.
Either date's fine with me.
Joe, what do you think is more doable for us, the 4th or the 11th? I know that you're going to
Say it, say it, Joe, say it.
You can come,
Go ahead.
I know there's a preseason football game of the week of the 11th, so you might want to stay away from that one.
we have to at least start the
Are we
process.
doing a wide shot right now? Please don't focus in.
We'd have to at least start the process while you're here, Mr. Town Administrator.
Early August, so let's go with the 4th.
Let's go with the 4th then. All right. We're going to shoot, for that, and see how,
That's the Tom Brady.
at worst, we can fall back to the 11th if we have to.
week of.
Mark?
Mr. Chair, I had heard in the past, I've never been to one here, that it was poorly attended, and I'm just wondering if we could give some thought to publicity. You know, we want to pose it so that people really want to come. I do know in Chatham, they meet, they have a summer residence advisory committee that meets weekly. They have a very robust August meeting. I don't expect to have that this year, but I regard this, if we can get a crowd here, there could be the start of perhaps people to you know, serve in an advisory committee for us long-term, because a lot of these towns off Cape are dealing with things that we may be dealing with Prop 2.5 overrides, just the whole things that they may already be experiencing, that they could bring their knowledge to us.
You make a very compelling case. That's why we put it on the agenda this week, so that gentleman over there with a newspaper can say that we had this discussion, and we brought in this person with a camera over there so that they can watch this meeting and they will know that we're going to, and then we can do publicity also. But that's why we're having a discussion early enough so that we can make sure people know we're going to do it. Anything else on this? All right, so we're shooting for the 4th for a non-resident taxpayers meeting. Okay, discussion on acting town administrator. We got to come up with something. Now, if they're acting according to our charter, we don't have to follow the same processes for full-time. But we need to have this discussion. We need to have somebody that we feel comfortable with. I mean, I've got at least a couple of names in my mind. I'm sure that you've pressed, some of you might too. So I'm encouraging you to think about that so that we can move expeditiously, because we don't have a lot of time. And I really don't want to go like in August or September without somebody steadying the ship and being in charge. So it's an initial conversation right now. Votes could be taken, but I'm just assuming to throw it out there so that well, next week we can't, because you're not going to be here, are you? Okay. But that doesn't mean that you can't have somebody in mind. Even the two people that I know, all I was able to say, because all I can say is we have a need, and should that need develop in the near future, are you willing to have that kind of conversation with the town? And that's as far as anybody's gotten. So if you got people that you can think of, I think it's important that we start moving on this. Pete?
I was just going to say, I agree that the clock is ticking. However, I think by charter, we have 10 days after the seat is vacant. So therefore, we have into the month of July.
Yes.
So if Jeff is back on the 30th, that might be a time frame that works for everybody.
But the homework assignment is, if you can think of somebody, let us know.
Sure. If I could, Mr. Chair, and
Sure.
I'll try to be efficient and I'll try to be direct. The 30th for me is a difficult date because July 1st is, somebody's got to do the work on July 1st. We have an assistant town administrator currently who for the last 4.5, almost 5 years, has been the person that the board, the town, and the public has trusted that if in the event the seat of the town administrator was vacated, for whatever reason, wishing you no ill will down there, Mr. Powers, we were comfortable, confident, and ready to have the assistant town administrator step in and do the work. So, Mr. Chair, when you say if you can think of anybody, I don't have to think, frankly. I know who I would like to have sit in that seat. I think to expand on that, I think on July 1, when the seat is vacated, that person will be the acting town administrator. And in past meetings, there has been some discussion about having the town administrator search firm give, and I don't know the exact language, so forgive me if I mess it up a little bit, but it was something to the effect of maybe recommendations or suggestions. But given the timeline of July 7th, which maybe not, because I don't think you're here on the 7th, Pete, so it might be before or after the 7th, where we were told that that's when the interviews would begin. We're looking at late July, maybe into August, prior to even getting the search firm hired to then request suggestions or recommendations. So I think the timeline is blown out of the water with respect to that. And then, you know, what do we have somebody sit in the seat for a month and a half and then say thanks, but now we're going to go with the recommendations of a search firm who doesn't know how great of a job that this person has done over the years. Again, I'm trying to be efficient and direct. And I would not support relying on an outside search firm to tell me who I think the right person to do the job would be, and to, I think I know we have the right person already, in my mind. This is an opportunity for this board to state publicly that we believe in this person, we trust this person, and this person is on the team, and with this board as it's constituted right now, we can get through this period of time where we do not have a town administrator. And I believe that that person is the right person to lend stability to this town. This person is not interested in being part of the town administrator search. I hope this board doesn't miss the opportunity again, once again, to do what is truly, and I believe, in the best interest of the town. And on a side note, I'd like to just for the record state that the assistant town administrator, in many difficult public conversations, has handled herself in what I would consider to be the most respectful, honorable, with dignity and grace during some pretty difficult public conversations. Lastly, I would like to put on the record that this would come with commensurate pay increase, and I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's the right person for the position, and I think Harwich will do fine with that person in that seat. That's where I stand. I don't believe I'm going to vote for anything else. So it doesn't have to happen when I'm here. You know where I stand. And I will not support anything else, and I would actually be very comfortable putting a motion on the table if I felt that there would be support for that tonight. So, thank you for indulging me, Mr. Chair, and I'll listen.
Well, thank you for the comment, and certainly in the near term, Megan's going to have to do that, but I'm not going to be saying anything I didn't already say to her face. We have no finance director. We will have no town administrator. If she were to act in that position, we would have no permanent assistant town administrator who does procurements at precisely a time when we're supposed to be putting out a number of high-profile contracts. So what, and I said this to her, and I'm saying it to you, so then we'd have two people who are acting in positions they don't actually hold at that point. I don't feel, I understand the loyalty to her, because I have that same loyalty myself. I like Megan, but I'm looking at the town and what the town needs right now, and the town needs somebody who's done this before. Megan's going to wind up having to do a bridge anyway, because there's no way we're going to wind up with an acting town administrator anywhere near the first week of July. We have to have a bridge. But I'm thinking 6, 8, 10 months down the road, we're going to be punching a hole in another spot in administration, that if you backfilled, you've got somebody else who isn't proficient at what they're doing because they haven't been doing that job. I would be equally adamant that I'm not going to support that kind of transition, because we're in a bad spot right now in leadership. We need to have a number of people in positions that they're capable of doing. There's a number of retired town administrators who would offer us the stability and offer Megan the opportunity to be able to do the things that she needs to be able to do to keep the town moving. Because she has a job too, and you're forgetting that. If she vacates that, then where are we getting that work done? She cannot do both jobs. There's just no way that that's physically capable of happening. So those are my 2 cents. I wasn't anticipating filling anything tonight. If anybody wants to make a motion, go to it.
If I could just briefly, and Jeff, I appreciate your comments, and as far as you initially saying that you may not have been verbatim, and I just want to, and I'm not even sure if your text referred to me, but with that said, I too am not looking for a search firm to tell me who to place as the town acting or interim town administrator. I think I did allude to 20 years ago, the firm did provide us with a name. However, my request of the search firms was to get a better handle on the time frame. I know their initial response was 4 to 6 months or something that line, but we clearly heard from our town council, I forget how long ago now, but that you're looking really realistically at an 8-month window, and because we're on the Cape, that could easily extend it. So that's really what I was looking for them to provide insight to me to help me make a decision, because I do think having that seat open for a long period of time creates some internal issues. So.
Yeah, and my thought, and I've thought about this quite a bit, and I will agree with Mr. Howell. You know, with no undue respect to Megan, she does have a job to do, and if she is in 2 jobs, how can she perform both jobs at the same time efficiently? And now we don't have a finance director, so that's going to put an extra burden. I have been with the feeling that we do need to bring someone in that could help her in the government process that we're in right now. And it's no disrespect to her or what she can do or what she's not capable of doing. My thing is just to bring forward some help for her. And I would be more apt to bring someone in that would be able to assist her a little bit more than just putting more burden on her.
Mark?
Yeah, I even said tonight to Megan, how you do this, all the labor negotiations, she's so well organized, I have nothing but the highest respect for her. But if she was to be the acting town administrator, you'd have to get somebody to take her position. I think that, especially in view of all that we have going on, finance director, town administrator, law firm, she best can accomplish those type of search firms and let somebody come in from the outside who has had a management role, who can captain the ship, and I think that's the way to go. And again, I have nothing but the highest respect for Megan. But I just think we've got so much on our plate that she needs help, and I think the best place for the help would be for her to stay in her position and have, somebody from the outside be the acting town administrator. Thank you.
Julie,
Before we go to the public, could I say one more thing? if I could?
sure.
So I would agree that there is no question that Megan will need help. This is a unique period of time, and I clearly hear the board. And I see where the votes lie, and I respect that from all of you. Whomever steps into that role is going to need help. If it's an outside person stepping into what Harwich is dealing with and facing right now, currently, in the unique situation and place that we're in, who do you all think is going to be helping that person get up to speed on a daily basis while trying to do her job? I would rather have somebody at the helm who knows exactly where this town is, where it's been, where it is, and where it needs to go, and backfill a position for that person, for Megan, to do procurement and to help her with assistant town administrator duties. So whomever comes into the seat is going to need help. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. I think I'll end there.
And before we go to Julie, but there's a learning curve for doing that too. And the bottom line is there's at least 2 administrators who are retired in this proximity, both of whom are familiar with the town of Harwich, both of whom have actually performed at a town administrator's level and know the stuff of that. I mean, because Mass General Law pertains to everybody, not just to this town. And where I'm at right now, we've got 8 contracts that haven't been negotiated out. We've got no finance director. If she became the acting town administrator, she'd be in a different job than what she's doing. Then we'd have to get somebody in a different job behind her. We already have a problem of process. I'm trying to look for somebody who doesn't want the job permanently, who doesn't have any interest in any long-term relationship other than maybe 8 months, and try to just make sure that everything is straightened out and running well. If Megan wants to apply for the actual job, I would encourage her to do that. And she should be compensated, but we're not going to be able to backfill in time anyway. Because as soon as the current administrator is out of the job, we don't have the ability to appoint a town administrator right away. She will have to act that way, for that period of time. So there has to be some sort of combination in my mind of bridging from her to an acting to a full-time. And hopefully we can sort out the other things that need to happen, including the fact that, as I said, we don't have a finance director. That's a really big hole in the organizational structure, and that is not going to be addressed anytime in the near future. So, Julie, 6th selectman.
So, again, Julie Kavanaugh, I just want to ask the board, which I asked prior to the end of my term, why the change now? Because you had, and again, Joe, your name keeps coming up, but Joe was the assistant town administrator for 4 to 6 months when he was on board, when our other town administrator left. And Joe went right into that position. Why is the line being moved now for the person who's been in the job 4 to 5 years at this point, not on the exact months to the 4 years, but ultimately has done a phenomenal job? I haven't heard any board member, past or present, having any issue with that. So I'm asking you, do you think it's a good look for the town to move the line and say that that person who's currently the assistant, who then takes on the role of the acting when the town administrator is out of town, out of reach, whatever, is doing that job, and then suddenly isn't qualified to do that job while you look for a town administrator. We have spoken on the board, when I was on the board, of being the employer of choice. This does not give off the vibe of being the employer of choice when you turn to the people who you depend on to do the job day in, day out. They do a remarkable job, and they turn around and the table gets moved further away. For no valid reason. There's nobody tonight or in the past board cited any reason that made any sense to me. So you can go on a search firm, and that's gonna take you guys time, you all know that. You need somebody doing the job. If she's not in that position, Jeff is 100% correct. She will be teaching the person that position while they get up to speed. And you can shake your head, Don, but ultimately, whoever, if you decide to go in a different direction, that person who comes in to take that seat is going to need a hand up as well. And so I ask again, what has changed when Joe stepped in from acting to town administrator? Well, you did a search. I was on the committee. Ultimately, I didn't hear anything more about nobody being able to do the job. And the finance director position, as we all know, has been vacant for some time. Joe's not doing that job as finance director. We have a contractor doing that work. So putting anything with the finance director in lumping in with Megan doesn't make any sense. So I ask this board to think very carefully about the message that you're sending tonight. In the past board, I asked the same question. So I think, you need to proceed carefully and to do what's best for the town and look at the person in the seat who's done a good job for the town. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And as you well know, you were in a minority position over the last couple of years on management, so we are. I wouldn't agree with that. Well, you are. All right, so another week. Think about, I hear you, I understand where you want to come from. There is no discussion at all so far tonight, and I just want that for the record, of hiring a search firm to come up with an acting. That is not at all what this discussion was supposed to be about. So.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
You had mentioned you have two people off the top of your mind. Would you mind sharing that?
I'm not sure that they would want their names shared,
Okay,
so that,
understood.
I could tell you offline, but.
No, understood, and I respect that. Thank you.
But the point is that at least two are willing to have that discussion. So, and there are people who have acted in the actual capacity and in other towns. I wouldn't be making faces if I were you. In other towns, Mr. Powers came to us as an as a town assistant town administrator from another town to come here. So with that, we're going to have a further discussion, and we're going to vote from the board. Thank you. All right, moving along. Memorandum of Agreement with the Town of Orleans Council on Aging Supportive Day Rock Harbor Respite Program, and vote to authorize the chair to sign.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve a memorandum.
We're all pointing at you.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve a memorandum of agreement with the Town of Orleans Council on Aging Supportive Day Rock Harbor Respite Program, and vote to authorize the chair to sign.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and I'm not going to repeat the whole motion. Any further comment on that? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve a memorandum of agreement with the Barnstable County through the Cape Cod Commission for the 2005 Ortho-Imagery and Planimetric Project, and vote to authorize the town administrator to sign.
Second, and that was good.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's give him a bonus for actually saying both of those things correctly.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's kind of unanimous?
No, I said aye.
Okay. All right, moving on, town administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first comment under report is to congratulate Select Board Member Kelleher. I cannot say planimetric and ortho whatever as well as you did, and thank you very much
Even
for
looked
that.
up and saw what it meant. I thought it was about birds with orthometric.
Thank you. So just to announce two contracts under Town Administrator Report. The first one is a contract with Robert Childs Incorporated for the purchase of a Toro Dingo. And of course, everybody knows that a dingo is a compact utility loader which is necessary for the operation of the golf course.
That's what I was going to say.
And so this was for the golf course. This was procured by state contract. The estimated cost was $47,220. The actual cost that came in was $39,190. This was originally under the capital plan. The second one is for Morrison's Power Mowers. This was a contract to support the Department of Public Works. It was for the amount of $13,799.20. This was also state bid list, and it was the purchase of a Skag 61-inch mower for roadside mowing, which also replaces a 10-year-old John Deere that had over 2,000 hours of use. And this is funded through the Highway Department's, Public Works Highway Department operating budget. And that concludes my report. Sorry, just a reminder that Thursday is Juneteenth, so many of the public-facing buildings will be closed in observance of the Juneteenth holiday. Thank you.
Which only reiterates what Jen said earlier, Wednesday noonish. Okay, select board reports. Pete?
Two items, if I could. I'm hoping, and I know Jeff's not here next week, so I'm fine. And I don't, depending on what your agendas look like, Mr. Chair, but I would like, we recently received the finance reports on month-end May. And what I'd like is if we could get a breakdown by our current finance director or designee related to any areas of concern. If there's any areas of concern as we head to the end of this fiscal year. And then I see the balance, or the balances within the document itself, but could we get a breakdown essentially for items just related to Article 4? I believe there's a lot of items within that report that include articles from town meeting, special approvals. So if we can just kind of get a focus on the Article 4 budget, where we stand. Again, next meeting would be great, the following meeting would be great. And I realize we're coming to the end of fiscal year, but I'd like to see it ahead of time as to if we have any areas of concern. And lastly, personally, as an FYI to this group, meeting times, and I know we've had a lot of work to do in executive sessions, but meeting times at 5 o'clock for me are extremely difficult, and I probably won't be making the 5 o'clock starts for the foreseeable future. 5:15 is probably the earliest I'll arrive. So as you all know, there's a few items that I can't talk about in executive. Perhaps they can be scheduled first.
And it's not set in stone. There's nothing to say that we couldn't start the executive at 6 and go forward. I'm trying to break these down. That's why I didn't want to go 2 weeks. I'm trying to break these down into digestible pieces so we can get out on a reasonable time.
Yep. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Anita?
The only thing that I can say is that the 30th I will not be here. So I don't know if anything's going to be happening on the 30th.
We'll see what we can schedule.
Okay, that'll be fine.
Before we go any further, to what Pete was saying, there is something we need to at least get a sense of the board. It's not a vote, but the contract for the finance director is with us, and it's going to be expiring in 2 weeks. And I'm assuming we want a finance director. So is it the sense of the board that we want to extend out their services for the time being? Because we have to start a recruitment over again. I mean, there's no two ways about it.
Do we know if there's interest by our current provider?
I think there is.
I know the day-to-day individual is no longer going to stick around.
Right, no, Mr. Kinshirf did reach out, and I reminded him that the contract is between Kinshirf Associates and the Select Board. I think that's where the chairs come from.
That just happened, so I...
If I could, I just want to put on the record, we're talking about the interim finance director contract, not the search for a finance director, town accountant.
Correct, yeah.
Thank you for that. Mark?
Sure, new business opened in town, it's called Bagel Hound at the former A&W. Went there today, excellent bagel, so support our local businesses. I also attended, as previously mentioned, the Harwich Ponds Coalition, first meeting, over 30 people. People are interested in joining, the website is www.harwichwaters.org. Thank you.
Mark, I don't see any of the bagels.
I left them in my car.
All right.
But as per the ancient tradition of the town, I will continue to tell people to turn left at the place that used to be A&W. Jeff?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Pete, with the respect to the financial reports you're looking for, I don't have a problem with that being on next week's agenda, if that's what you were asking.
If it can be, I don't know what it is. but
If
yeah.
it can be, I'm totally comfortable with just
Appreciate
getting
that.
all the information and digesting it and asking questions later if I need to. I would like to follow up on an email I sent regarding the Monomoy Regional School Agreement. I would just like to keep the ball rolling, so if that was going to be an agenda item for this coming Monday, I would prefer that it get punted to the next Monday.
I will wait.
Excellent, thank you.
As I said to you, we're going to have a public discussion about it, but I think they want to do it in a slightly different way with Chatham, so we'll bring that up as an agenda item. And I got nothing, so
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
don't all rush. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?